Julie.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming and joining our family training webinar today. Today is our 4th webinar, and believe it or not, 4 months out of the 6. So we have more to go. And before we get started, we're gonna tell you a little bit about the rules that we have. So this presentation will be recorded, even though it says it's not recorded, but it's going to be recorded for future viewing. The presentation will be approximately 60 to 70 minutes and will be followed by questions and discussion with family members. Everyone needs to select the language that they want to hear. Just click on the icon and the globe icon and select the language that they preferred. If you like to ask questions or make a comment, you can post it in the chat or raise your hand. And the questions or comments will be responded to you after the presentation during the discussion time. To speak when called upon during the discussion, find the microphone icon and click it to unmute yourself. And this will be a short, there will be a short evaluation survey provided at the end of the webinar. And like I said, thank you again for joining our this webinar on transition using the using the person-centered process. And this will be done by Maurice. Let me tell you a little bit about Maurice. Maurice has worked exclusively in the field of deafblindness for 41 years. Most recently, Maurice served as a project coordinator for California Deafblind Services from 1992 until his retirement in 2021. He is currently adjunct faculty for 2 university teaching training programs and also serves as a co-chair of the National Coalition on Deafblindness, which advocates for federal legislation and policies that promote equitable access for children and youth who are deafblind. He is frequent speaker at national and international meetings, and in 2021, he was awarded the Anne Sullivan Macy Medal for his contributions to the field in deafblindness. Maurice, it's an honor to have you back and talk to our deafblind community. So here's your floor for you.
Okay, thank you so much, Myrna. And I want to thank everybody for being here today. Like Myrna said, I'll talk for about, I don't know, 60, 70 minutes, something like that. There'll be plenty of time at the end for questions or comments. So I'd like to hear from you. And if you're trying any of these strategies or if anything's not clear, just let me know. I'm going to start with a little bit of history and then a little bit of my own philosophy related to transition. And then I want to talk just a bit about incidental learning. I want to talk just a bit about the so-called soft skills and a few other foundational pieces that I want to make sure you have a clear understanding of. And then we'll get into the person-centered planning process. And the one that we're going to focus on tonight is called the MAPS process, or making action plans. So I am going to share my screen, and I have a PowerPoint. And it's not that's the CDBS website. So just 1 second while I make the PowerPoint come on. Okay, so I believe you have a copy of this PowerPoint. So if you don't, you'll be getting it, or it will be on the CDBS website. I'm going to start with the most boring slide of the whole session, just to get this one out of the way. And it's about the law. And the reason why I'm starting with this, it's boring because it's the law, if you find the law boring. But I'm starting with this, but we're not really going to be focusing on what's legally required today. In fact, I'm going to be advocating for doing things that aren't legally required. So IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004, was passed by Congress and signed by the president in 2004. And in 2006, the regulations were finalized, which add a little bit of extra meat to the original law. And this is the language that's in the regulations. It says, beginning not later than the first IEP to be in effect when the child turns 16. So that's important. So these things have to be in place when the student turns 16. So generally speaking, they're done when the student is 15 or younger if determined by the IEP team, and updated annually thereafter. The IEP must include, and here are two things that must be in the IEP. Number one, appropriate, measurable post-secondary goals based upon age-appropriate transition assessments related to training, education, employment, and, where appropriate, independent living skills. And for students who are deafblind, that will almost always be appropriate. And two, the transition services, including courses of study, needed to assist the child to reaching these goals. This is an old law, 2004. It should have been reauthorized in 2011 because typically IDEA always got reauthorized every 7 years. So in 2011, it was supposed to be reauthorized and Congress didn't do it. And they kept saying they would get to it. And they kept putting it off and year after year, the years passed. And what I'm hearing now, and other people may have other information, but what I'm hearing now is that Congress has no intention of updating IDEA at all. That they've lost interest in it, and it will probably just get changes made to the regulations. So the reason why I'm telling you this is if you have a child who is transition age, it's pretty likely that nothing is going to change as long as your child is in school. There's nobody in Washington that seems to think anything is going to be happening anytime soon. So the IDEA that we have now is the one that will probably have the rest of the time that your child is in school if they're older. So I hope that makes sense. That's what's in the law. But now I would like to, if I can, just regale you a bit with tales of yore, because I was in transition when individual transition plans first came into being. And I want to explain what we were doing and how we got to where we are today. So I was a teacher of transition age students in the mid to late 1980s. And as a group of teachers of the deafblind, we were well trained. We had good intentions. Our hearts were in the right place. But darn it, if we didn't start getting research data about students who were deafblind leaving school and having terrible, terrible outcomes. And by terrible outcomes, I mean many were not moving into work or recreational activities. Many were living with their families, regardless of whether or not that was their choice. What we were finding at the time was that these students were not actively engaged in their communities or in any way that we would call successful, self-determined, happy lives. So why did we start getting all this information about them? Because in the mid 1980s was the time that the children who were born from the rubella epidemic that happened in the United States in the early 1960s, many children were born deafblind due to their mothers contracting rubella during pregnancy. So it was in the mid 1980s that this huge group of children, deafblind due to congenital rubella syndrome, started to age out of education. They were turning 21 and 22. And so we started getting information about what was happening when they left school. And it wasn't good. And so we realized that we had to do something very different. And one of the things that we needed to do was do a better job of including families in the planning process. And the way that we did that was to develop this planning process that at the time we called personal futures planning. And these were events, gatherings of families and good friends and some professionals who knew the child well, loved the child, cared about the child's future. And we would have these really great planning meetings that had nothing to do with the IEP or nothing to do with all the policies and rules that schools had. It was just a chance to get together with the people who knew the child well, cared about the child, and wanted the best for the child. And so we were doing these meetings, and eventually these things started being called individual transition plans, or ITPs. Well, eventually the government got involved. And the government found out that all these things were happening around the country, and they decided that this was a good idea and that individual transition plans, or ITPs, should be mandated. And so what happened was that now IDEA says that the IEP for a student at transition age, the IEP has to include an individual transition plan. And that transition plan has to include what the hopes and dreams are for the student, and sort of what the plan is for how to get the student to a successful outcome when they leave school. Well, in my opinion, and now I don't work for the state project, so I'm free to say things like this, it kind of wrecked the ITPs that were going on. When they became mandated, it sort of ruined the whole idea, because now the ITP just became a part of the IEP meeting. And speaking as a teacher, not as a parent, but as a teacher, IEP meetings are not the place to dream, to consider what could be versus what is. And so what I am advocating is getting back to what we were doing back then, and doing whatever you need to do to satisfy the requirements of the IEP process in whatever state you're in, and in California, whatever district or county you're in. But thinking about doing something beyond what are the minimal requirements in the law. And so it's the difference between, as this slide says, the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. Because I think what the letter of the law says, this is what you have to do. The spirit of the law, the intent when the regulations were written, the intent or the spirit was that this would be a really great opportunity to bring people together, like I said, who know the child, who care about the child, who love the child, and who have an interest in making sure that the child has a happy adult life. So that's kind of how we got from when I first started teaching to now. And the fact that I'm not making this up. I have actually seen ITPs attached to IEPs. So it's just a one-page form that gets stapled to the IEP, or if it's electronic, it's just part of the IEP package. And a lot of the sections will just be crossed out, and somebody will write something like NA, meaning not applicable. So I don't know if they mean that they perceive that the child's multiple disabilities are significant enough so that there's no reason to talk about community living or competitive employment or recreation or whatever. But it's just awful that anybody would think that meets what was the spirit of the law at that time. It in no way meets the spirit. It probably doesn't even meet the requirements. So now let's move on. This is a picture that I really like, and I don't speak French, but I think it's the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, France. I love this picture. I've actually been to this place. It's a very sacred place in the country of France, because their tomb of the unknown soldiers is at the base of this monument. And what's interesting about this is that all the streets in this part of Paris, France, all lead to this place. So it's like a bicycle tire, and the center is the hub, and then all the streets are like the spokes. And why I like this picture is it reminds me of education for kids at transition age. Everything that happens should be leading to one place. That is, doing everything we can to ensure that this student leaves school and has a happy, self-determined life as an adult. Everything that is happening at transition age should be aimed at that goal. So everyone's efforts, all the goals in the IEPs, every activity that the child does, it should all be leading to this one place. And that's an important thing to remember. And we'll talk a little bit about what might be in goals in just a second. So I want to stop for a minute and talk just for a little bit about incidental learning, because incidental learning is a really important concept when thinking about planning for transition. And it's critical that we all truly understand the huge impact that deafblindness has on incidental learning, and the impact that incidental learning has on being an informed consumer of transition and adult services. So incidental learning, very simply, means things that you learned that weren't directly taught to you. Nobody sat there and lectured to you or explained things. Incidental learning is what you learned from the moment you were born, just by watching and listening to the world around you. Incidental learning is what you learn by just watching life happen. It's often said that deafblindness impacts the two distance senses, and we often say that the two distance senses are vision and hearing, because vision and hearing allow us to take in information that's off in the distance as compared to taste and touch. Now, smell is a distance sense as well, or it can be. but we mostly leave it out. And the reason I think is that because smell is only a distant sense for bad smells, like a dead skunk or a beached dead whale or something. It's not even something as wonderful as a Cinnabon bakery in a shopping mall. You can't smell it nearly as far as you can smell a skunk. So we often say that deafblindness impacts the two distant senses, vision and hearing. Well, the two, vision and hearing, those two senses, are responsible for almost all incidental learning. So incidental learning is if you have typically developed vision and typically developed hearing, incidental learning happened because you just watched the world around you and listened to the world around you, and you learned how the world works. It may be that you observed things that you liked and you thought, wow, I like the way that looks. I'd like to try that. Or you may have seen things fail. And so you think, luckily I didn't have to do that. Now I know that if I do these things, that's where I'm going to end up. So I want to make sure I'm not going to copy what I'm seeing from that person. It's just that information that you take in from the moment you start using your vision and hearing. And so not to be too much of a Captain Obvious here, but in order to make an informed decision means that it requires that the person be informed. And one of the challenges of deafblindness is that many children who are deafblind do not have access to incidental learning in the way that sighted and hearing people do. And why is this important? Well, if you think about three areas that we talk a lot about with transition, we talk about employment, living options, and recreation options. If you think about all of these three areas, a lot of what you know about these three areas, you learned through incidental learning. From the moment you started paying attention to the world as an infant or a toddler, you started seeing people doing jobs. You may have asked questions or had things explained to you now and then, but for the most part, you spent your entire childhood looking and listening to people doing jobs in your community. So by the time you get to the point where you have to get a job, you have a lot of information about the kind of job or kinds of jobs you might like to have based solely on what you learned incidentally, without anybody teaching you directly. You just saw people doing jobs and you thought, I see somebody doing that job, boy, I'd never want to have that job. Or I see somebody doing that job and I'd love to do that job someday. The same thing with living options. You go as a child and as a teenager, you go visit people in their homes or where they live. So you learn that people live in houses, people live in apartments, people live in RVs or mobile homes, people have roommates, people live alone, people live in big, tall, high-rise apartments or low-rise garden apartments. There's lots of different ways to live, and you learn the advantages and disadvantages of those. And the same thing with recreation. So, I mean, I was just reading a story about a week ago about a giant fish that was caught in Shasta Lake in far northern California, and I have an irrational fear of swimming out in the middle of Shasta Lake because I know that the giant sturgeon can get to be 10 or 12 feet long. And the idea that something almost as long as the car I drive could touch up against my foot when I'm swimming out in the middle of a lake is enough to keep me out of the lake. Nobody taught me that. It's just something I learned incidentally. And now I know that I don't want to swim out in the middle of Shasta Lake. So I would ask you, as this slide says, I would ask you to just think about your own experiences. And in what ways did you learn about all the options for these three areas: employment, living, and recreation? So as you're thinking about today's webinar, whether it's tonight or tomorrow or over the weekend, I ask you to just give some thought to the ways in which you learned about employment options and living options and recreation options. Okay, so that's incidental learning. I also briefly want to mention this so-called soft skills. What are soft skills? Well, the next slide lists the difference between the skills that are typically known as soft skills versus hard skills. So soft skills are skills that are useful across all industries or types of work. They're natural abilities, and they're related to what we call emotional intelligence. Hard skills are the actual technical or specific skills you need in order to do a specific job. So to go back to that last slide, here are a few of the skills that are typically included in a list of soft skills: communication, teamwork, adaptability. So that you might think of adaptability as kind of like flexibility, problem solving, creativity, work ethic, interpersonal skills, time management, leadership, and attention to detail. Soft skills are the skills that employers tell us they are most interested in when they're thinking about hiring somebody for a job. We have years and years of research telling us that employers care more about soft skills than they do hard skills. Employers tell us we can teach the hard skills. I can teach somebody how to bag groceries. I can teach somebody how to code software for a computer, or I can teach somebody how to work in a garden center, selling plants to people. I can teach people those things. But what I look for when people want to come and work for me is I look for how well they communicate, how well they can problem solve. Are they creative? Do they have good interpersonal skills, getting along with other people? Are they good at managing their time? Do they have attention to detail? Do they care about doing good, thorough work? So employers say, we can teach the hard skills, but I can't always teach these things. And so they care that students leave school with these skills that we call soft skills. I have this slide here that says these are some personal qualities not measured by tests. And many of the soft skills would fall into the category of not easily being measured by tests or assessment instruments or even transition checklists that your school might use. So there are things here like enthusiasm, compassion, motivation, persistence and determination, humor. These are all personal qualities that are not easily measured by tests. And as a researcher once said at a conference that I attended that I've never stopped thinking about and has guided my work in the state projects for 31 years, this researcher said, remember that not everything that can be measured is important, and not everything that is important can be measured. So I'll say that again. Not everything that can be measured is important, and not everything that is important can be measured. And so, yes, we can assess whether or not somebody can count from 1 to 100. We can test whether they can work from a task from left to right. There are hard skills that we can assess. It's hard to assess the soft skills and personal qualities, but these are really important. And I think they don't get talked a lot about in school because they are hard to assess. It's hard to show progress. It's hard to think about how you teach some of these things. But it's something to think about when we get into talking about the MAPS process. Okay, I'd like to say this to the CDBS team. I'm one of the things that I'm not very good at all is watching the chat box and talking. So I'm hoping that somebody else is watching the chat box. If there's something that has to be addressed while before we get to the question and answer portion of tonight's webinar, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going. So, yeah.
This is Julie. So far, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll let you know, though. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm terrible at chewing gum and walking, or whatever that expression is. I can't look at chat boxes and talk. Okay. So, well, Julie just chimed in. Julie is my guru when it comes to issues of deficit model versus capacity model. And she's written some really great articles for CDBS that are available on the website about capacity-based models and in terms of assessment and instruction. The difference here is a deficit model focuses on all of the things that a person can't do. And one of my other gurus, David Brown, who was on our project for many years and is still my neighbor, he famously once said, and I always remember this, he said, even my mother, Mrs. Brown, who has no knowledge or skills in deafblindness, even my mother could spend 10 minutes with any one of the students that I work with, and after 10 minutes, make a long list of all the things that child or student can't do. David said, I think he said this, any idiot could make a list of things that a person can't do. What takes skill and knowledge, and as Patty McGowan, who is on this webinar, is participating today, famously once said at a meeting that I was at, the difference between knowledge and wisdom is experience. What takes knowledge comes from experience, and thus wisdom. What takes knowledge is looking at, or what takes wisdom is looking at a child or a student and having a clear understanding of all the things they can do. Not what they can't do, what they can do. And this is important when it gets to transition, because something happens when a child turns transition age, whether it's 14 or 15 or 16 or 20, whenever it is, either that the child starts if you're a family member, you start thinking more about transition, or if you're a teacher, when you first have a child enter a transition program, a student enter your program. What happens is that there comes a point where it's important to just say, this is who this person is. If they're 16, 18, 20 years old, they're pretty well set in terms of who they are. And so when I was a transition teacher, rather than focus on what they couldn't do and try to change them by increasing their knowledge and skills in all these different areas, I realized that it was important to sort of accept, okay, this is who this person is. They're probably not going to change a whole lot. They're going to learn skills. They're going to learn hard skills, but who they are is kind of who they are. If you're 18 or 20 years old, you know, you're pretty well set in terms of the kind of person you are. So looking at individuals at that age and saying, this is who they are, let's think about this child in terms of capacity, not deficit, but capacity, and think about all the things that this person can do, all the things they enjoy, all the things they're good at, and think about how we take those things and do everything we can to make a really good adult life for this person based on all the capacities and gifts that they have. So now I'm seeing it's 20 before the hour, so it's perfect timing to dive into the process that we're here to talk about tonight. So tonight we're going to be talking about a specific model for person-centered planning, and it's called MAPS. And MAPS stands for Making Action Plans. It also maybe stands for the McGill Action Planning System. But for purposes of tonight, let's just say it stands for Making Action Plans. And I want to thank, well, actually, before I do this, I do want to point out that there are other formats that are basically very similar to MAPS. They go by lots of different names. So you may have heard personal futures planning. That's the one that I mentioned before that we were doing in the mid-1980s. Or sometimes people refer to just a more generic person-centered planning. But whatever you call it, there are a number of models that help guide the process for bringing together people who know the target person well and care about their future and want to provide information to help the person get to where they want to be in life. So I want to thank Gloria. Whoops, go back, Gloria. This is our former colleague at CDBS, Gloria Rodriguez-Gill. When she worked for CDBS, she created a MAPS document, and that's the one that I'm using tonight. And it's available in English and Spanish. And the CDBS staff has both the English and Spanish versions. The English version happens to be on the website of the National Center on Deaf Blindness. And everybody at CDBS has the Spanish version as well. So I'm going to be showing you the English version. So what a MAPS is, let me go back one slide. What a MAPS is basically a process that brings together people, like I've said, who know the student, who care about the student, who want the student to have a wonderful, happy, self-determined adult life. It brings these people together to help the student and the student's immediate family figure out everything that has to happen to make sure that the student is ready to leave school at age 18 or 21 or 22, whenever the student leaves the special education system and enters adult life. It's a process for helping the person get there. And what's really important to remember, and I'm going to say this a few times tonight, but this is such an important component to the MAPS process, or the personal futures planning process, is that if you decide to do this, it is your meeting. And now I am talking to you moms and dads and guardians out there, parents and guardians of young adults who are deafblind. This is your meeting. You are in control. You are the host. It is not a school meeting. It is not a legally mandated meeting. You get to decide who attends and who doesn't. It's your choice. And what I tell parents all the time is, while there may be a role for all team members towards the end of the process, at the beginning of the process, you want people who share your interest in the child, or your child, young adult, who hopefully know this person at least a little bit, and who share your commitment to a capacity-based approach, and share your commitment to dreaming about what could be, not what is, not what always has been, but dreaming about what could be. Thinking outside of the box, thinking outside of the way it's always been done, thinking about outside of the one place that everybody in the school always goes to when they graduate and enter adult services, because that's how it works. But really thinking more about what's possible. It's your meeting. You can decide if there are people on the student's educational team who are negative, who don't bring good ideas, who drag the process down, who focus on the deficits, or focus on the way it's always been done. Those people don't have to be included. It is a chance for you to be in control and for you to decide how you want this process to go. Let me just warn you, I've seen this happen over and over, because I've been involved in MAPS and personal, so many MAPS and personal future planning meetings, I can't even count them all, or wouldn't try to. I've seen examples, I've experienced times when parents have given up some of that control that they have around this process and regretted it. So a school might say, well, Ms. So-and-so, I understand that you would like to have this at your neighborhood pizza restaurant, but you know, we really want all the teachers to be there, and it will be a lot more convenient for them if we have this at school. And yes, I understand that you would like to have this in the evening so you can serve pizza, but if we do that, then the teachers won't come. So it has to be right after school. And we have a perfect room for this, Ms. So-and-so. We'll just use the IEP room because that has a big enough table and it has a whiteboard and it has everything that we need. Well, the reason why I'm sharing this is before you know it, you've lost control. It's at the school. It's after school. It's in a room that doesn't feel comfortable to you or members of your family. It's not what you had in mind. And the meeting starts and the administrator wants to assign a note taker, and all of a sudden it feels a lot like an IEP. And as I said, IEPs are not the time to dream big and to think outside the box. IEPs are stressful. They are time limited. There is not enough time in a typical IEP to really think about everything that needs to be considered for transition. So I would just ask you to think about how you hold on to whatever you can in terms of the process so that it works for whatever it is you choose to do. So let me show you all the different components of a MAPS process. There are only a few. It's pretty simple. We usually start with history. So we usually start with just an opportunity for people who have known this person for many years to talk about the student's history. And we don't have to talk about every single thing that happened to them, but there are certain big events in a child's life that I think are worth remembering. If they've been through major surgeries, if they've changed schools, if they've moved to a new city, if they've lost a family, a beloved family member, or conversely gained a beloved family member. I mean, or gained a really good friend, or other really important things, had a really great volunteer work experience, things that are really worth noting on a timeline. This is your opportunity to do that. So just taking, say, 15 minutes of an hour and a half or 2 hour session, and just getting the basics down of what the important milestones were in the student's life. Another component of the MAPS process is strengths. And the examples that are on these slides are taken directly from the document that Gloria Rodriguez-Gil developed. So you'll have you'll have these same lists on the document that you get from CDBS. So strengths. This example happens to be for a 10-year-old. So in this case, they were doing this process for a younger child who maybe was changing schools, or having another big change in his life where people felt like they needed to come together and do some planning. But for a transition age student, you would just want to list all of the person's strengths. And many of the strengths you see here would fall under the list of soft skills that I showed you, or also that slide that I showed you about personal qualities: curiosity, flexibility, I'm looking at them here, persistence, good problem solver, optimist, good sense of humor, affectionate. These are all important strengths that will help guide the transition plan and the IEPs for all of all of the IEPs that come after this process. This information will be very important in thinking about IEP goals and thinking about job placements, etc. Okay. The next page is the second page in the handout on likes and dislikes. And so here we have a list of likes and we have a list of dislikes. And these are critical for transition age students because there are basic likes and dislikes that need to be considered when you're thinking about planning an adult life for another human being. Does this person like to be outside, or do they prefer indoor environments? Do they like to get up early and get going and do a lot of things early in the morning? Or do they like to sleep in and start their day in the late morning? All of these likes and dislikes will help guide the program. They'll help guide IEP goals, and they'll help guide everything that's considered for a student when they leave school and enter adult life. So there's likes and dislikes. The next component is dreams and fears. And sometimes people say, well, why do you want to talk about fears? Doesn't that sort of bring the group down or the discussion down? I think not. I think it's important to be honest about what people are afraid of. Because if we know what people are afraid of, it will help us know how to avoid those things, or at least know that we need to do everything we can to avoid those things. So a dreams list here, you'll see for this specific student, their dream is that they'll have friends, that they'll learn to use the bathroom, that they'll eat independently, that they'll learn to use sign language, and they'll be happy. Fears are that they won't have friends, they won't have relationships outside of the family, that they might be taken advantage of. All of these things that people are afraid of about this person's life. So that's dreams and fears. And then this is one of my favorite parts of a MAPS process, and it is the ideal day. It's one of my favorite parts because it is something that we don't always think about when we think about the kind of life that a person will have when they graduate from school and enter adult life. The way I frame this when I lead a MAPS process is I say, just think about that a student, say a student graduates on a Friday. Think about that first Monday morning, that they're no longer in school. They've entered adult life. What does a perfect day for that person look like? And I have learned so much about people by hearing from them and their loved ones about what an ideal day looks like. The last MAPS process I participated in, well, actually the second to the last one, I guess, was right before the pandemic. It was in a person's home with their family. And what we learned at that MAPS meeting was that this young person liked to get up very early in the morning and was ready to leave the house by 7 or 7:30, showered, dressed, had breakfast, and was ready to hit the road. And worked really hard in the morning, a little bit quieter in the afternoon, and after dinner, it was quiet time and early to bed. So that was really important information to know about this individual, because it wasn't what you would expect for a typical person of that age when you think about most teenagers who like to, you know, given their or if they're able to do what they want, they'd sleep till noon, you know, that kind of typical teenage behavior. And this young person just didn't fit that at all. He liked to get up, get going, and have a very, very busy early morning. So here's an ideal day. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say about an ideal day is this is where we might say, you know, this person isn't going to, your child or your student may not want to work at a job for 4 hours or 6 hours a day. They may love public transportation. So they may want to work at a job for an hour, take public transportation across town, work at another job, take public transportation to somewhere to have lunch, take another bus to get to a fitness center, or, you know, whatever. It would be your chance to build in all of the things at a person's day that they like to do, so that you kind of get a sense of what it is you're working towards while the student is still in school. And then finally, out of the MAPS information that we've gathered so far, you have goals. So what are some things that need to happen? And the last step is the action plan. Whoops, there it is, action plan. So now you take the goals and you say, okay, who's going to make these things happen? How are we going to make this a reality? We have all this really good information. It's capacity-based. But now we need it to drive the program. So we need this information to take flight, so to speak. We need an action plan to say, okay, what are we going to do with this information? How is it going to guide the program? How is it going to guide the IEP goals? And how are we going to make sure that everything we are doing is leading to that one very specific goal? And that goal is that we want this person to have a happy, self-determined adult life. So what are we doing while they're still in school? How is everybody working together to get the student to that goal? So that's the MAPS meeting. I want to close by showing you something that came out of a MAPS meeting that I was involved in. I am a big believer in something that we call video resumes. And video resumes are video footage of a student, a young adult, doing activities that will showcase all of their strengths and gifts to potential employers, to potential adult program staff, to potential volunteer sites, potential living situations. My experience is that when people hear the term deafblind, just the term all by itself creates a number of reactions. And many of the reactions are while they're not, I wouldn't say they're negative or positive, they're troubling. that if a person who doesn't understand deafblindness hears the term deafblind, they might think, wow, a deafblind 21-year-old, I can't imagine having that person in my place of business, or I can't imagine having that person as my roommate, because they just don't understand it, and it's our job to help them understand it. So one of the things that I strongly advocate is that while students are in school, that the school staff and or the family videotapes the student doing all of the things that they do in school and work experiences and job training, so that you can show this to all these potential employers and adult service providers and anybody else, to just highlight all of the things that the student can do. And what I have on this slide is highlight things that the student enjoys and that the student does well, because those are the two things we're looking for. We're looking for things that the student enjoys and things that the student does well. If a child has a work experience opportunity when they're 16 years old, and say they're working at a plant nursery, watering the plants in the morning before the nursery opens to the public, and the student loves it, is good at it, does really well, everybody's happy, that needs to get videotaped, because as much as we think we're going to remember that, by the time that student is 20 or 21 or 22, that nursery experience might be a distant memory. And we may forget how much the student enjoyed it and how well they did. So we want from the very beginning of the transition years, so no later than 16, start getting these things on videotape and creating what we call a video resume. So I'm going to close by showing you a short 3-minute or 2.5-minute video resume of a student. This is available on YouTube, so I have permission to share it. It's a student that we served for many years. His name is Young. He's a great guy. He's the kind of guy that anybody would be, in my opinion, and I happen to be slightly biased, but in my opinion, anybody would want to be his friend. Anybody would want to have him around. He's a great guy to have around. He does all sorts of interesting things. And his intervener, in coordination with his family and his other team members, did a lot of videotaping, and they have a short video resume and a long video resume that are both on YouTube. So I am going to show you that short video resume, and then we'll take questions and comments. So I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint, and I am going to go to Safari, and I'm going to show you how to find this. We're going to take a virtual field trip here. I'm going to show you how to find this video resume. The young man's first name is Seung, so it's spelled S-E-U-N-G. And if you Google Seung video resume, you will find it. It's the very first thing that comes up. So I'm doing this so that you can see how easy it is to find this if you want to see it yourself. So let's watch this together. It's 2 minutes and 41 seconds. Take a look at Seung and how great he is.
You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in your ability. You're capable of anything. You can achieve any dream. Please don't limit yourself. Don't live your life limited. It's not all sadness and misery. Life's a challenge, but you will succeed. Take control of how you feel. in every circumstance. Work on yourself daily. Your story's far from done. The best is yet to come. To achieve, you must believe. You can live out all your dreams. Persevere, you'll make it. What you need is all in you. When you believe, you will achieve. You can live out all your dreams. It's about time you knew the truth. You got the power all in you. You have to believe in yourself. You don't have to hide anything. You can be your true self. Don't need to follow society. Never forget that you're blessed. Give thanks for everything. Even the hard times will turn out to be blessings. No matter how you feel, you can learn from your pain. It's there to make you great. Your story's far from done. The best is yet to come. To achieve, you must believe. You can
Okay, so I am going to make sure that that doesn't keep playing to another. Oops, hold on one second.
We are at the end of the second quarter of 2020.
Okay, so the longer video resume for him actually shows how more three-dimensional he is. When Kayla and Myrna and I were at his home doing the MAPS meeting, he sat down at the piano, and he's actually a really talented pianist. And so we learned all sorts of interesting things about him just that one day when we did the first MAPS meeting there. So I'm going to close with just saying this one thing. I was thinking about this a few weeks ago. There used to be this, back when I first started at CDBS, there was a guy who used to go around the country doing these workshops about loss and grief. His name was Dr. Ken Moses, and he was a really interesting guy. He came up with a model for loss and grief that he called the states of grief. And one of the states is denial. And he said, you know, denial gets a really bad rap because people think that denial is a bad thing, but actually when you're dealing with a loss or going through personal grief, denial plays an important function. Denial is there to help you build internal strength and external supports. And I've never forgotten that. And I was thinking about this webinar, and I'm thinking, you know, that's exactly what the MAPS process does, I think, for a teacher, and I would assume it would be a similar experience for a family member. The MAPS process helps you build your internal strength, the strength that you're going to need to get through your child leaving school and becoming an adult, but it also helps you build external supports. So it helps you identify who the people are who are there to assist you and get you to where you want to be and get the student where they want to be. So with that, it's exactly 10 after. So we have, I was asked to save the last 20 minutes for questions or comments. So now I would very much like to open it up to all of you. If you have experiences, if you would like to know more about this, if you would like to know how to include your child or student in the process to make sure that they are participating to whatever extent they are able to and want to, we can talk about any of those components. So I open it up and I ask the CDBS staff, are there any first questions or comments in the chat? And now I can look at it.
Hi, Maurice. It's Julie. Wow, thank you so much. So a lot of the chat posts have actually been from me just agreeing with you and making some other points. But there were a few, like it sounded like it resonated for some people when you made that distinction about it not being the same thing as the individualized transition plan, that it shouldn't be an IEP meeting, because Lane McKittrick actually had that occur with her, that not applicable or whatever at the meeting, saying or doesn't apply. So it sounds like that resonated. People were talking about how important it is to see capacity, especially with students with, multiple disabilities where it might be harder to see. So it sounds like some of those things resonated, but I just want to encourage anyone. It's a small group out here today, so feel free to post in the chat or just turn on your camera and mic and ask Maurice a question.
And Julie, let me respond to what you just said, because I want to make sure I'm clear. Do whatever your district or local education agency asks you to do in terms of what they have to do by law. So they may need to have an individual transition plan attached to the IEP, and they'll do whatever they want to do. That's fine. They can do that. But what I'm saying is you do what you need to do to help you get to where you want to be. Don't just take that little bit of transition planning and assume that that's all there is. Do what the district wants you to do, but take it much further. Patty, I saw you come on. I don't know if you have a question or comment. As somebody who has lived through this, I think we have a lot to learn from our family members who are veterans at some of these strategies. Oh, hold on, Patty. I think you're muted if you're talking.
So I just want to say it's so great to hear and see you, and thank you very much. And I actually have both a comment and a question. So it's interesting. I was glad to see the example of the maps, because I know in my state of Pennsylvania for a while, we've been using the PCP, the person-centered planning. And it's interesting because the team comes together and the family invites community and friends, etc. And there's a lot of visual pieces to that drawing. And just this summer, I had a teacher of the visually impaired write to me and said, how does this work for the visual impairment? And, for all these years that we have used this tool, and to think, of course, how much you want the student, the transitional age student, to be a part. And you've got all this drawing and artistry going on. And, it took me back because I thought, wow, there needs to be some rethinking. And so what I really liked about all of this information tonight is it was in print, it was in text. And so we know that that would most likely be more accessible for our students who are deafblind. So that was a comment. My question is, and, as I'm working and living now, my son has transitioned out of being protected under IDA and into the adult world, and working with other families that are on this piece of the journey. is all of this good work, such as a map, the example that we saw tonight, how can we make sure as families and our loved ones, our young adults now, to make sure that this carries to whatever agency or, whether it's vocation work or whatever, that they too will pay attention to all of this information. There's a transition piece in that as well. Because when we're protected under IDEA, we have all kind of tools and planning and documentation. And then you get into these various adult agencies and it's like, will they pay attention? Do they realize how important these documentations are?
Yeah.
So do you have experience, like the next step?
I'm glad you're asking this, Patty, because one of the things that I didn't talk about, because we just don't have that much time, is that this is a process. It's not a one-time event. So it's a process that can be added to, that can be subtracted from, that the action items maybe can change over time and the goals. And so if you think of whatever model you use, whether it's person-centered planning or maps or whatever, if you think of it as an ongoing process, one of the things that almost every single time I have ever facilitated a MAPS meeting, I have had people come up to me afterwards and say, I wish somebody had done this for me. Not when I was a kid, like I had somebody, the last one that Julie and I did together before I retired, I had somebody come up and say, I wish somebody had done this for me when I divorced my husband, and like had to start this new life. And I could have really used all my friends and loved ones coming together to support me and figure out how I was going to move forward. So it is a process, Patty. I think that it doesn't have to end. And so I think that if you want people to be invested, you might think about keeping the process going with some of these new people so that they're in on it. Now, if they don't know the person well, then that would be then that wouldn't make sense. Then it would just be in the olden times, I would have said, make sure you have the document, in print and a record of it and photographs or a video of the actual meeting and things like that. My experience these days is people don't want to spend that much time, that they're looking for just clips. So like a short video clip of some of the maps or person-centered planning meetings and the key points of the document, sort of in an easy to read one-page bulleted list, I think would probably be the most effective way to get people to pay attention to it. I hate to give into that but it is kind of the way that people are asking for information these days. But I do think it's worth thinking about continuing to do this on a whatever kind of regular basis makes sense for the person and the family and the people around the person, because it's not an event. It's a process that should go on from age 16 or whenever through the school years and into adulthood.
Yeah.
Every time there's a big change or challenge coming up, how great to have people come together and say, I know this is about to happen. We're here to support you. What a life-changing experience. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's no easy answer, Patty, unfortunately.